Ladies and gentlemen, you know what I do some weekends? I sit in a chair for 6 hours and watch reruns of Ultimate Fighting. And my son comes up, "What are you doing, Dad?" "Get away, I'm watching reruns." And he leaves me alone and I get to watch them. This is, to me, the greatest sport around. I know I'm a football guy, but I started watching this 4 years ago and I cannot get enough of it. And it is an incredible honor for me to have the president of the UFC, Dana White. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. And I'll tell you, I'm excited as hell for your fight Saturday with Rampage and Evans. Tell us about that.
Me too. This fight's been a long time in the making. You know, if you're that big of a fan, and thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you getting into the sport the way you have. Obviously, they were Jardine fought Rampage first, Keith Jardine.
Oh,
Rampage beats him. Rashad was the next in line. He gets up into the octagon, and it's all downhill from there. Those two got in each other's face and started to dislike each other very much. We made them coaches on the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, where they literally went at it more than the competitors on the show did the entire season. They're supposed to fight at the end of the season. Rampage Jackson takes off to go film the A-Team movie, which is coming out this summer. And the fight was put on the back burner, and it's finally happening this weekend. And a lot of people are fired up. I seriously, you know how big UFC 100 was for us. The buzz for this fight might be bigger than UFC 100.
This is good. They're both pretty even, these guys. And
yeah, I think the odds are pretty close to even for this fight.
Although I'm not betting. I'm not allowed to. I'm in Virginia, you know. But if I were in Las Vegas, I'd be betting for Evans, to be perfectly honest with you.
Really?
Now, I want to ask you about you. You fascinate me. You are a genius when it comes to business. I mean, you took what was sort of a backwater sport, and you put some real rules in place, and you've turned it. I mean, this is the fastest growing sport in America. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about me?
Yeah, weren't you managing like Chuck Liddell for a while,
right.
and so forth?
Well, what happened was I've always been a fight fan since I was a little kid. My uncles used to watch the big fights on ABC's Wide World of Sports, and I became a big fan of boxing. And later on in my life, I boxed in the amateurs, and I basically at one point in my life decided, the fight business is where I want to be. I really don't care about the money or anything else. I left my job. I was 19 years old. I was a bellman at the Boston Harbor Hotel. And I walked out the door one day and said, I'm done. I'm getting into the fight business no matter what. That's where I want to be. I don't care if I make a dime. I'm going to be happy going to work every day. So I literally went out, and the first thing I did in Boston was I ran an inner-city youth program, a boxing gym for kids, inner-city kids, getting them off the streets. And then from there I started training fighters, managing fighters. Then I moved back to Las Vegas, which is where I grew up, in 1995. And I obviously stayed in the fight business out here, and partners of mine, Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, own Station Casinos. And at the time when I got introduced to mixed martial arts, yes, I was managing Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. And through managing them, I found out that the UFC was in trouble and was basically going out of business. So I went to Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta and said, I think we should buy this thing. And a month later, we owned it. We bought it for $2 million back in
look what you've done.
2001.
Look what this is an international phenomenon. And I have to say, every now and then I cringe. I got to turn my head, but I got to look back. I've got to keep watching the fight. And this Ultimate Fighter stuff, by the way, is unbelievably good.
Thank you.
It's just very exciting to watch these young guys come in, and you're not sure who's going to win and so forth. Now,
That's
by the way,
the American Idol for fighting.
It's better than the American Idol for fighting, let me tell you. Now, in Oregon, Chael Sonnen just won a primary. Chael Sonnen may well become a member of the state legislature in Oregon.
Right.
You aware of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, you have smart people. I mean, you got guys there who've been teachers. You got guys there who've been lawyers. You got guys that have been all walks of life, right?
Absolutely. You look at, who Chuck Liddell is. Chuck Liddell, he looks like an axe murderer. He actually, he's got the mohawk with the Chinese writing on the side of his head. Guy is actually an accounting major with honors from Cal Poly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what did Tito ever do?
Tito went to college, too.
Yeah, why do they hate each other?
See, the thing is, about 90% of our guys went to college because they have a wrestling background. And most of the other guys are martial artists. They're all smart guys. There's a lot of misconceptions about our sport. You know, these guys are animals. This is barbaric, and it couldn't be further from the truth. These guys are incredibly conditioned athletes, intelligent guys, real guys in society, and they like to compete.
And they're strategic. Everything is strategic because they're fighting guys that can knock them out with one punch or one kick or whatever. Now, tell me about Liddell and Ortiz. Are they seriously going? Do they dislike each other? I thought they used to like each other.
Yeah, at one point, it's a long soap opera story, but basically, like I told you, I used to manage Chuck and Tito. So we were all cool, we were all friends, and everything was great. And then as the business started to grow and things started to happen, I had a huge falling out with Ortiz. Liddell had a huge falling out with Ortiz, and Liddell and I have been together for 13 years. And we probably have one of the best relationships in sports. From managing him to owning the company and doing what we've done, Liddell and I have stayed close and kept our strong relationship. Ortiz and Liddell and I have fallen off. I honestly believe Liddell definitely hates Ortiz. Hates him, can't stand him. Ortiz doesn't hate Liddell as bad as Liddell hates him.
By the way, we're on WABC in New York.
Right.
And if I understand correctly, you can't get these guys into New York to fight. Isn't that correct?
No, well, we're working on it. What you got to understand is back in the crazy days. Now, listen, how the UFC got started was a bunch of television guys from New York got together and said, hey, what would happen if we answered that age-old question of which fighting style is the best? Would a boxer beat a wrestler? Could a karate guy beat a kung fu guy? So they put on this pay-per-view event, and it was supposed to be a one-time deal. Well, it did so well on pay-per-view, it rivaled the WWE and huge boxing events at the time. So, of course, they did another and another and another. In a million years, these guys never thought they were creating a sport. But the answer to that age-old question ended up being there is no one fighting style is the best. You have to have a little piece of everything to be a complete fighter. And Bruce Lee was preaching that back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Me and my partner saw that. Once we met some of these fighters and educated ourselves about the sport, we really fell in love with it and said, wow, man, this thing could be big. If we did this, we did that, we had all these changes we wanted to make with it, and we went out and did it. But what you have to understand is all the stuff that went wrong with the old owner and all the bridges that were burned happened in New York. So we always knew that New York would be the last place to get sanctioned, and it is. It's the last place in the country right now to get sanctioned. We're actually on the budget in June, so we're pretty confident that it's going to happen this summer.
Well, let me speak to New York, since this is the biggest show in this time slot in New York on WABC. You damn well better get this fixed.